Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we have the Patriot Prayer founder and leader, Joey Gibson. Thank you, Joey, for coming to my channel today. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. So some of the topics we want to talk about, we want to jump right into what the Patriot Prayer is. Could you explain what Patriot Prayer is to us?
Patriot Prayer is basically a philosophy of trying to change culture, both at a spiritual and a political level. Definitely a lot of promoting freedom, promoting God, and trying to bring a different activist community to the streets that's totally different than what's been happening on the West Coast for the last 2 decades.
Absolutely. And when was it founded?
Uh, well, my first official Patriot Prayer rally was April 2nd of 2017. But I would say what really built Patriot Prayer was the 2016 election.
Okay. And why did you choose to form this organization, this movement? What was the catalyst?
The catalyst was seeing people get beat up in the streets, leaving a Trump rally in San Jose, and people were just standing by. The police stood by, and I realized that we have a problem in this country right now, and it shouldn't matter what your political ideology is. You should be allowed to go listen to someone speak, and you should be able to leave safely without the threat of violence.
Absolutely. Have you been keeping up with the events happening at Portland State University lately?
No, I haven't. Is that regarding the guns?
There was Michael Strickland, who was, I believe,
Oh, yeah.
he's the laughing at liberals guy. He was doing a speak at the college Republicans when a college student or a non-college student came to campus with a cowbell and started ringing for an hour.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw.
yeah, and police did nothing. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, it's a difficult one because legally, I guess you can say he's also exercising his right to the First Amendment. It's also indoors, so I think that you should be able to be allowed to kick people out, but that's more of a policy of the school.
Mm-hmm.
I think the interesting thing, though, is culturally the fact that this guy finds it not only acceptable, but he thinks he's on some sort of glorious mission to shut down his speech. Mike Strickland doesn't have anything to say that's even that controversial.
Mm-hmm.
What he primarily talks about is the fact that he was arrested for trying to defend himself. So that's something that everyone should listen to his point of view, and then have a debate, have an argument, talk back and forth. The interesting thing, if you talk about the difference between the left and the right, and I'm not big on dividing left and right, but there are some differences that are interesting. One of the interesting things about not the moderate left, but the far left, is they're afraid of people hearing me, for example, Strickland or whatever. They're afraid of people hearing our message. They're afraid of it. That's why they try to do the cowbell, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
concerned about people hearing my message, which is really interesting to me because I'm always trying to get people on camera. Like, I want people to hear your message, whoever you are.
Right.
I don't care, even if you're, especially if you're hateful, I want people to see that, right? So people can kind of see what's happening. If I have hate speech, which I don't, but if I did, that's why people justify trying to shut down my speech. They should be doing everything they can to get me on camera with my hate speech and posting it all over, right? That's
Right.
what they should do. So I think that's just the interesting thing is the difference between the left and right in terms of when it comes to speech.
Absolutely, and I agree. On religion, could you elaborate your religious views for the viewers?
Yeah, well, I'm not religious because religion is basically men conforming to one another, right? And
Right.
saying, hey, you have to agree with me, otherwise you're not part of this religion. Jesus came down to destroy religion, really, in my opinion. So I'm not big on. I'm all for churches in terms of people gathering as a community and
Mm-hmm.
praying and singing and having that spiritual experience with other people. But when it comes down to it, I follow Jesus. Um, I follow his teachings, and that's who I pray to, and that's basically it. It's all about learning and growing from other people, reading the scripture, and I think that even as an atheist, as you're an atheist, I think that Jesus has. It's hard to argue against anything that he taught. I think most people who have a good heart are kind of like the guy has
Mm-hmm.
a really good message, and
Absolutely.
so that's what I appreciate about him, and that's how I kind of connect with atheists in terms of listen. Even if you don't believe he's the son of God, if you want to understand me, it's through his teachings.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. You've been, at least recently, you have been outspoken about the Second Amendment. Could you tell me your stance on this topic for the viewers who may not be aware of your stance on it?
Sure. So basically, throughout the history of this world, those who are in power always try to take away the people's right to defend themselves. It's just the way it is. You look at Hitler, Stalin, Mao, go all the way back to the day when all we had was swords. The people in power are afraid of the people being able to defend themselves because the people as a collective, they're very powerful, especially if they're armed. It keeps those in power it keeps them from doing things that people don't want. So basically, my theory is that because we live in a free society, well, kind of free, it's very hard for them to take away our rights because of the Constitution. So they have to slowly take away our rights, just slowly, so that there's not a huge uprising. And basically what they're doing at a state level is they're making it harder and harder and harder for us to be law-abiding citizens. And I do not believe that they're doing this to keep us safe because simply all the facts out there show that places with the most gun control have the most gun violence. I believe they're doing this, and they're going after the rifle. The semi-automatic rifle might kill one person in the state of Washington, but they just passed 1639, which is an attack on the semi-automatic rifle. So I believe we need to have as many rifles in as many households as possible in this country, and that's what keeps ground troops off of our land. That's what keeps our government in check. And I'm just begging for the people to consider the fact that we have to stay armed as much as possible, and we have to. Every single law that we pass, they don't hurt the criminals; they hurt the law-abiding citizens.
Right. And which brings me to another point about Portland State University. Since you're so close to the campus, and it seems to be such a haven for, I guess people call them social justice warriors. I remember the college Republicans were trying to bring Lars Larson onto campus, but he was banned from coming to campus due to his open carrying policy. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think a public school should have the right to prevent someone from coming on campus due to open carry?
Yeah, so basically what happened with Lars Larson is that they basically said that he has to agree to not carry, and he refused to agree to that. And it wasn't open carry; it was to conceal carry.
Okay, thank you.
So here's the thing about universities. Just like how the universities have to respect the First Amendment, okay? For whatever reason, thank God, we as a society, as a country, we've stayed strong to the First Amendment, okay? The First Amendment for the long time isn't a left or right issue, okay? It's an issue for the people. For whatever reason, we've decided that the Constitution only exists in certain areas. So now you can't go on a university with a gun. In a lot of the universities in Washington State, a lot of the universities all over the country, you're not allowed to have a gun on the property, and I think it's an absolute disgrace. It's just another attempt at them to limit where we can have guns. First it's the schools, then the colleges, then the parks, and then they're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And so there's a lot of women too that I think should be allowed to carry on campuses. There is a lot of women are victims on campus. A lot of them are walking late at night by themselves, and I think that they should be allowed to defend themselves. I think the Second Amendment should exist on all public property.
Absolutely. And why do you think... sorry, I had the question. Regarding your point of view on that, why do you think the colleges prevent people from bringing guns on campus, and why is it more important than they seem to make it seem to be?
There's two different types of people. There's people who mean well, okay, in terms of gun control. There's a lot of kids out there that they really mean well, and they push for gun control because they think that's the answer, okay? And then there's the people higher up who are literally just trying to take away, 1 inch at a time, take away our gun rights. And I think that's what it was with the universities. I think it's done at a higher level. They just want the kids to get used to gun control, get used to the fact that it's okay for these higher ups to say you're not allowed to have guns on campus, and I think that's all it is. It's just to get the public more used to gun control. That's all it is, I think. But there's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to carry on campus. I mean, these kids, if they're legally allowed to carry, they should be allowed to carry. They should be allowed to protect themselves, and I think that it'll make the campus a safer place.
Absolutely. Oops, the thing went away. Okay, there we go. Let's see here. Sorry, the screen kind of went away for a second.
It's okay.
Okay, there we go. How familiar are you with? Let me get their name. Redneck Revolt.
Familiar.
What are your thoughts on Redneck Revolt, an American radical left group that organizes primarily among working class people? The group supports gun rights, and members often openly carry weapons and support gun rights. And its political positions are anti-capitalist, anti-racist, and anti-fascist. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is a good thing, or do you think they may be walking a fine line between like violent protesting and carrying weapons?
I think that open carrying at rallies, I've seen it be very efficient in making people be polite to one another.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen any violence when people are open carrying. I think that it's a bridge between both sides to open carry because both sides believe in the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about them, though, Redneck Revolt, is they get caught up in the politics. They get caught up in the whole hate Joey, by all means necessary. They had a booth. We have a Second Amendment rally up in Olympia. There's going to be a few thousand people there. They had a booth that they were going to be able to talk to people. And everyone there is going to be on the opposite side of the political spectrum as them, which is cool. But then they backed out because I'm speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they need to, which is funny because it basically gives me control over them. Basically, anywhere I go, they can just back out, I guess. But I think that I don't know what to say other than the fact that I respect the fact that they're pushing for gun rights for the people. I never understood why people on the left who think that Trump is a fascist, why they would push for gun control. I just don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everyone should be for guns from far left all the way to far right. So
you would think if they feared that he was a tyrant and a fascist, that being armed with the Second Amendment would be the thing that they would want to do.
You would think.
So it's almost as if carrying concealed carry or open carry, just having like your guns on you, can act as a deterrent from violent protests that we've seen here in Portland from Antifa.
It is a deterrent, big time. Not only does it deter them from showing up, they also Antifa. They don't like taking a position as if they're anti-guns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's a deterrent in terms of you don't want to punch someone who's open carrying.
Right.
I mean, so I think open carrying is a good way to deter the violence, and it's a good way to keep things calm. And people are a lot more polite when guns are around.
Absolutely. So I've heard over the time that there have been some allegations, and correct me if I'm wrong on the allegations, there have been some accusing either you or the Patriot Prayer as being Nazistic, alt-right, racist, fascist, or white nationalist by the far left, such as Antifa. I tried reaching out to Antifa to get a comment if they had any questions for you, but they haven't gotten back to me, unfortunately. What a surprise! What are your responses to these allegations and these charges?
Sure. Let's use logic. So, fascism, okay? Nazis, Hitler, okay? Hitler, just like Stalin, was not a freedom fighter. He did not believe in freedom. He hated free speech. He hated gun rights, okay? Free speech and gun rights are two things that I've been pushing for really hard. I would be Hitler's worst nightmare, okay? Mm-hmm. This is the thing. People need to use logic. It's not, you can't just label someone. You have to look at their actions. And what I've been doing is I'm promoting freedom. To promote freedom means to promote power for the people, to take power away from the elitists, away from people at the top. What drives me is to keep tyrants out of D.C., out of Olympia, out of Salem. That's what drives me. That's the thing that when I ask people that question, when they call me a Nazi and I bring up the free speech and the Second Amendment thing, they cannot answer. They have no response at all. They don't understand the fact that your actions speak louder than your words. Mm-hmm. Just because they call themselves anti-fascists, okay, it doesn't make them anti-fascist when they're acting like fascists. They're the ones that are trying to beat up other people because of their political ideology, because of the things that they say, because of the things that they preach. That is a fascist. So I think that the interesting thing is that people never attack my message, ever, because it's a message that resonates with people. All they do is name call and throw those terms around. And it's an absolute disgrace because there are actual Nazis out there, right? Mm-hmm. And so there are actual racists out there. And when they say racist and Nazi all the time, people become desensitized to it, and now no one's going to listen. When there's a real victim of racism, no one's going to listen. A real victim to, if there's a Nazi that did something, no one's going to listen because they've heard a lie a million times. Did you know every single year there's an actual Nazi white supremacist rally on Whidbey Island up by Seattle?
I did not know
every single year. And nobody protests them. Why? Why don't they go protest the real Nazis and the real white supremacists? The reason why they don't protest them is because, number one, they're probably too afraid, but number two, because those people have no influence, right? Mm-hmm. They want to come after me or other people who have a voice. That's it. For them, it comes down to the communist ideology. They don't like freedom because they believe freedom builds an elitist class, and they don't. And they say they're against capitalism and they're against racism. Those are the two things on Rose City Antifa website that they say they're against. So they justify beating people up because they're racist. That's what they do. Because it's hard to get a bunch of people to show up and assault people because they're capitalists, right? Mm-hmm. So they have to go racist, racist, racist. The truth is they hate the fact that I promote freedom and I promote God, and those are two things that communists hate. So that's why they throw out those words, because that's the only thing they can do to motivate people to come and attack me.
Absolutely. And I've noticed lately you've been doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, a demasking of Antifa members. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Could you explain what your motivation was to start demasking Antifa members?
So, I believe in nonviolent action, okay? So it was a way for me to attack them in a nonviolent way, and basically they're so afraid of being exposed about who they are. It's so interesting. The second the mask comes off, they start acting polite. So when they have the mask on, they'll just say all these swear words. They'll even use derogatory words. They'll even call black people racist words. They'll do it. It's on camera. They called that black, the ICE officer, they're calling him the N-word. Okay? White guys calling black, but they have the mask on, right?
Right.
So, and liberals were reaching out to me, okay? Because Portland used to be a good, not good, but they used to have a strong activist community that was filled with normal people who didn't cover their faces. Now, liberals cannot have a rally without Antifa showing up and ruining it and scaring people for everybody else. This is exactly what happened at the ICE protest. The ICE protest, the ICE, Occupy ICE, was started by semi-normal liberals, and there were families in there. There were just normal people in there. From what I saw, it was clean. And then Antifa comes in with masks on, and they start dictating to everyone else what they can or cannot do. They start telling people they cannot talk to the police. They start telling people that they start kicking people out. Ironically, they build their own wall, and they have their own immigration policy and determine who can come in and who can leave, basically. So when I get phone calls from liberals just complaining about Antifa and asking for my help, so what I decided to do is start going into liberal protests, liberal marches, whatever it may be, find one guy that's there, go up to him, demask him, get it on camera. Mm-hmm. What started happening is when we showed up, people automatically started pulling their masks off, and they just disappeared into the crowd so they can just look like everybody else. So it's been very effective, and you don't really see masks anymore at any of these events. There was, they thought Haley Adams was going to be at Pioneer Square one day. There's about 100 people there to meet her, to kind of whatever they want to do, just yell and scream at her. There were no masks on. So it's actually very effective, and it's been working real well.
Absolutely. And you brought up the going to these counter-protests. I recall that an event for the International Socialist Organization at Portland State University was canceled not long after you announced that you were going to try to go there. Am I correct?
Yeah.
They said that the police at Portland State University told me that it was due to threats of violence. Um, where do you think these threats of violence came from? Do you think they're valid, and do you think that the police had a right to cancel this event that you wanted to go to just because of threats?
No, they don't have. I don't think it's okay because I think the reason why everyone was so afraid is because 4 of our guys just got jumped a couple days ago, so things were kind of hot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running around Portland after they got jumped, demasking people, and it was causing a lot of havoc. And then the Socialist building got hit, graffiti, broken windows. So I think things were just hot at the time. But I was showing up by myself, so
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows I'm not violent.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, though, anyone who knows anything, including the police, they're probably afraid of someone on the other side starting violence with us.
Mm-hmm.
Because 99% of the time, the violence always starts or does not ever start with us.
So, not recently, but James Moore, I'm not sure how familiar you are with my friend Andy No, but he and I had brought James Moore to Portland State University. And he went on, I believe it was Wall Street Journal, explaining how they received death threats and that they reported them to Portland State University, but they didn't cancel the event. Do you see like a hypocritical stance taken by the university, or do you think that they're just like not having a good stance on like how to handle protesting and free speech?
Couldn't answer that question. I don't have a lot of experience with the university police out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that they would be better off politically siding with social justice warriors than with us,
Right.
or at least appearing that way. So that's all I can say about that. But I haven't really. I know there's a lot of stuff going on at Portland State University. I don't know. I've only been there once, so
Right.
I have a lot of experience with them.
Understandable. So would you say you're a conservative, Joey?
Nah, no.
No.
I believe in freedom. Constitutionalist is closer.
Mm-hmm.
Conservatives, again, it comes down to the labels. Put people in a box, which is
Right.
always dangerous. But traditionally, a conservative is going to be for freedom half the time, the other half of the time. Gay rights, for example, perfect example. I think that conservatives really messed up by being so anti-gay. I mean, it's okay to be against homosexual lifestyle, but you have no right to tell 2 people what they can or cannot do, right?
Right.
I think that stuff like that, even traditionally marijuana, some of these other things that they get caught up in certain things. They want their morals to be part of the government sometimes, and then other times they don't. So I'm really not a conservative. I'm more a constitutionalist. I want a small government. Look at George Bush, for example, who's a so-called conservative, and he gave millions or billions and billions and billions of dollars to big banks who screwed over this country,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that what I want is I want freedom. I want small government. I want to spend less money. I want to take in less money, and I want the people to be free. So
Okay. And you brought up homosexuality and how it's okay to be against homosexuality as a lifestyle, but not to deny someone rights. Correct?
yeah,
Where do you stand on same-sex marriage?
I don't think it's my business.
Mm-hmm.
People can do whatever they want as long as it's consensual.
Okay.
And it's just a marriage is more than what's on paper. Also, it's a commitment, right? You can't stop 2 people from making a lifelong commitment to each other.
Right.
They do. So that's what I'm saying is live and let live. Let people do what they want as long as you're not hurting other people, which you're not, right? There's nothing. If 2 people getting married, same gender, that's not affecting anyone in the world except for them 2. So
Absolutely.
just not my problem.
So with excuse me, not George W. Bush, with Donald Trump, what kind of stances do you have with Donald Trump? I know he's a very divisive president at the moment. I think Ben Shapiro put it perfectly by saying that he wasn't for Trump or against Trump. He was sometimes Trump and sometimes not for Trump, where would you stand with the president of the United States?
Yeah, there's some things he does that I like. There's some things he does that I don't. And I'll give you an example. I remember during one of the debates when he was still running, he said that he liked the fact that Mayor Giuliani did a stop and frisk campaign in New York, which basically was against the Constitution. It gave officers the right to stop and frisk anybody for any reason without due process. Right. So that really upset me, right? So for me, it's about freedom. So the things that he does when he's cutting regulations, good job, okay? If lowering taxes, good job. But still, we still have loopholes in the tax system, right? So there's things that he's done that I like. There's things he's done that I don't. I do appreciate the fact that he's hated by the establishment, both on the right and the left. I do appreciate that he's exposing the mainstream media for being liars.
Right.
So it's one of those things where people are they either worship someone or hate someone when it comes to politics. I don't do that. But I will tell you this much. I thank God every single day that Hillary Clinton did not win. I'll tell you that.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So I want to bring up this article. So CBS News reports that Washington State passes a bill mandating political candidates release their tax returns in order to appear on the ballot. Personally, I think this is unconstitutional. There's probably nothing in the Constitution that says you can't do that, but when it comes to the elections of presidents for the United States or presidential candidates, this seems wrong to force them to have to meet a secondary or another stipulation that no other states are requiring. What are your thoughts on this bill?
Here's the problem. It's going to give people ammo to attack. So, for example, I'm an investor, and if I run and I have to release my tax returns, it's going to expose all the investors, and so people can go after them. That's what it's for. Same thing with accepting donations. I think if it's over $250, then it's public knowledge. So everyone that donates to me, they're exposed, and Antifa, communists, people on the left, they're going to go after them.
Absolutely.
And they do it now. When I accept donations on GoFundMe, I don't use GoFundMe anymore, but when I accept donations on GoFundMe, it's out in the open for everyone to see. They will find that person who donated to me. They'll go after their job. They'll expose where they live, and so I think it's a way to basically scare people into conforming into whatever's being forced upon them.
And I have one last question, and this is in regards to when you ran, I believe, was it for the House or the Senate?
Senate.
Senate? Are you planning on running again for any office anytime soon?
I don't think so. I'm just not. I don't enjoy it. It pigeonholes me. If I were to win something, then I'm stuck doing that instead of going wherever my heart desires. So, and I don't enjoy the game. I don't enjoy. I'm not. Well, I didn't really wear a suit and tie when I ran. I just wore a t-shirt. But I don't think so. I really don't.
I think that's important. Wearing just a t-shirt when running, there's this notion that you have to be this specific professional look in order to run for the Senate or for the White House. I think Jimmy Carter countered that by being one of the most casual presidents. So I think that's a good thing that you were promoting more casual looks while running for the Senate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me today, Joey Gibson. Is there anything else you'd like to say today?
No.
All right, thank you so much. If you guys enjoyed the interview, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below and tell me what you think below. Thank you again, Joey Gibson.
Sure.
Have a good one.
You too.